What's up guys, welcome to the second video, and this one's about nutrition for fat loss. There's a couple of different things that we'll talk about, very simple things. There's plenty more that we'll get through in the duration of the program. But there's a couple of really simple things that you can do as of right now if you're looking at nutrition for fat loss. Basic rules we're talking here. Number one, don't eat rubbish. Now, there are a lot of myths around clean and dirty eating, and that's something that we'll go through in time. But generally speaking, one thing that you can do right now is improve the quality of the foods that you eat. And the reason being is that for the most part, whole foods tend to be more filling. They have a lot of micronutrition involved. But for the most part, they tend to be lower calories. And when we're talking about fat loss, we're talking about calories in versus calories out. Whole foods help you accomplish that. There are a bunch of different types of whole foods, but generally speaking, as long as the food's relatively close to how it was when it was picked out of the ground or walking on top of the ground, or swimming under the sea, that's pretty much it. So generally speaking, more whole foods within certain limits, but we'll talk about that later. As for nutrients, there are a couple in food that we like to look at, but in general what we're going to focus on is protein, and that's something you can focus on right now. The reason we look at protein, well, there's a few reasons. Number one, we're looking at an exercise and food program. Protein is really the most important nutrient in this respect because protein is the key building block of muscle. When you're working out, you need to repair your muscles, and that's the job of protein. The other thing is that protein, of all the different nutrients, tends to keep you the fullest. So a respective serve of protein as compared to carbohydrate will just keep you fuller. Now, as for what protein is or where it comes from, generally speaking, it comes from animal sources, dairy. Those are the high quality proteins. Eggs as well. There are vegetable sources, things like tofu and nuts and lentils and legumes. And they're all very good quality sources of protein and should all be part of a fat loss diet. As for how much, well, that varies. To give you an example, someone who's 100 kilos looking to lose some fat, we'd be looking at around about 200 to 230 grams of protein. We like to keep it high. Now, the reason for this is because protein will help you keep that muscle around that you've worked so hard to build. As for how much 200 or 230 grams is, just imagine doubling your palm up and having a serve of protein about that size. You'd be looking at about 4 or 5 of those per day. That's a pretty basic look at what we need to know about nutrition. There's plenty more to come, I promise. But in the next video, I'll let Ken take it away.